Welcome back to Dragon Army Books. My name is Dustin, and this is a spoiler-free review of Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. This is one of those fantasy books that is touted as a fantasy must-read, especially of the modern genre. This is one of those books that I've had on my TBR list for a long time because before I made this YouTube channel, I was trying to gather like some key core fantasy books that I hadn't yet read that I needed to read to kind of have that foundation of fantasy books read. Well, I had seen this on lists and I had heard other people talk about this book, so I had it on my list for the longest time, but the particular cover didn't draw me in, and I really am like a visual. Like if you've got a nice looking cover, I'll pick up your book. I might not enjoy it and I might not read it all the way through, but at least I'll pick that book up. This cover didn't do it for me. Now, I know that there are some other covers. Some are better than the original one, but I think that was maybe the main reason that I didn't read it originally. Well, I have now since gotten around to reading it, and I'm glad that I did. Assassin's Apprentice is the first book in the Farseer trilogy, which is the first trilogy in a series of trilogies or a series of series. It's many different series that take place in the same world. Some of the books and series contain some of the same characters, but this is the first book in the first series, and I went in completely blind. Although it's been on my list for a long time, I didn't know anything really about it, and it's good that I did that because I really didn't know what to expect here. The story is told from the point of view of Fitz Farseer. He actually goes by many names throughout this book. I think by the end I had somewhere between 8 and 10 different names and titles that he actually went by throughout the entirety of the story, which is interesting. But it kind of goes to show who he is. He is a bastard assassin, and I don't use either of those words lightly. They're central to his character and his story. But it's told in a similar way as Patrick Rothfuss's The Name of the Wind, where in that story you've got Kvothe telling his story of events that transpire and happen to him and around him. In this story, you've got Fitz at some point in the future telling his story. And so what we're reading is him telling events that transpire throughout his life from when he was really young, soon after he was born, to where he could actually remember things, and all the way up through, I don't know, into the teenage years of his life. And so we see different moments and sequences where he's, his first romance and his first training with various people in the community that he lives in, and then finally pairing up with an assassin, the king's assassin, and then starting to be trained in that. And then there's 2 different magic systems here, one that he is trained in a little bit, and so we see those training montages, and we see him rise up in the kingdom to, the idea is hopefully take the role of the new assassin for the kingdom, because our current assassin, the one that is training Fitz, is older and he's on his way out. He's phasing out, so he's needing to train someone up under him. And it takes years. And so this story really is years and years and years of Fitz's life. And that made for a somewhat slow story. There are plenty of segments here that don't really matter. But you know what? I never felt that I was dragging or that I wasn't getting anywhere. I think in part because of the prose. Robin Hobb's writing is done exceptionally well. The prose is pretty. It's not quite poetic, but it is flowery in a really good way. It's not just done mechanically. It's really creative and flowy, and so I think it kept me engaged even when the plot was moving slowly, and because I was invested in the character and where he was going and what he was accomplishing and how he was evolving, I didn't feel a lot of the slowness, but I think that it's most certainly there. And it's because we're seeing through this one protagonist's eyes the entire time. There's no POV switches. As far as I can recall, there's no POV switches. It's all him telling his story. So he skips over major events in his life, and he skips over some kind of sequences that we would have liked to know more about, but he doesn't want to talk about, or he doesn't remember, or he doesn't think that's important to him. And so it presents a unique storytelling adventure, but one, again, that I think that Hobb did well. She knows what she's doing here. And I think that she very intentionally set up the story so that she can take Fitz Farseer into some incredible distances in the next 2 books. I've heard that the series only gets better, and if that's the case, then you're going to see some 5 stars from me because I really enjoyed this novel. I enjoyed Fitz, and I think she did it. I think the scary thing here is when you've got one POV, especially that's telling their own story, sometimes you don't get the additional character development from secondary characters, but you get that here. And I really felt myself attached to characters like Burrich and Chade and Verity, some of these other characters, and especially the pet companions. There's a few of those here that you feel directly connected to because one of the magic systems connects to animals. Assassin's Apprentice is a foundational novel, not only in fantasy and one that you should read, but in the series, I feel like. It really sets the tone, builds out the world, connects you to the character, lets you know what's at stake, lets you know who the players are, and the magic systems, but doesn't go in depth on any of those. Kind of just sets the scene. Takes a while to do it, but I'm here for it, and I'm going to be able to continue to read the series because I really, really enjoyed this one. Have you read Assassin's Apprentice? If so, let's talk about it in the comments down below. Tell me who your favorite character is from the first book or from the series. Don't spoil anything. And tell me why Nosy is the absolute best dog. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch and like this video. If you haven't, click subscribe, join the Dragon Army, and we'll see you in the next one.